Hello and welcome to the Life Burst Podcast, where we talk about all things Wixoss. Today we've got a pretty cool deck list that we're going to be talking about, which is DJ Lovett, and I know you're going to love it. Ah ha ha ha! Oh, that pun out of the way, let's just keep going. This is going to be a continuation of our series where we're updating things for the changing Diva meta, and I thought I'd give you guys an option for DJ Lovett. This is what Tiffany and I tested pretty extensively, and we got some good results out of it. I think there's some changes that could be made that would be fine as well, and I'm eager to see what you guys would take this and move on with. This is what inevitably we started using. It is a pretty aggressive version of endless Punchline decks, aka Jockey decks. I think that's the drive, right? Like, I don't think you want to be playing DJ Lovett all that much outside of on its own dream team. I don't think its ability is utterly fantastic that you want to inevitably do that, but everything about it, when we read it in a second, pretty much screams that it should be in an aggro deck, right? Team Jockey. Jockey's not necessarily aggro on its own, but it does have red and it does have white, and both of them are pretty aggressive colors. Green is not super aggressive, but can be a good complement with red to be more aggressive. So just its team makeup already is a little bit of aggressiveness. Its action ability is that you can down it. If your opponent's center L-Rig is level 3 or more, you can put target card from that player's enter zone into their trash. And then it's once a game action ability, by the way, is that you can down and up to level. It gains the ability to down and up to level 2 L-Rig, and you may up this L-Rig. So basically, when you add those together, it more or less says, hey, I can enter burn 2 times in a game and still attack. Theoretically, you can enter burn 3 times, but it is not a great idea to miss choosing to attack just so that you can enter burn 1 extra time. It might be worth it, and it's a valid option to think about to stop some kind of very important grow, but you should consider that as being an option. It does have a great enter ability, which is just vanishes a Signy on your opponent's field. So this one, unlike Bang, for example, which has the opponent sacrifice a Signy, this one is pretty good because you can target down what you want to get rid of, and then you can set your field up in a way that's advantageous to that. Everything on this pretty much screams that you want to be an aggressive deck with this. You don't really... I mean, enter burning is a fine ability on other types of decks, right? Mid-range likes enter burning, so does control, but it's... I mean, who doesn't like enter burning? But it's most effective when you are putting a clock to back it up, so by the time they get over the hump of the enter burn, the hurdle that you've set, it's already over. The game's going to end. And it's also red. Red generally is a more aggressive color, especially in Wixoss. And so I think you'd be remiss to not run the important red cards because you need to run good cards to grow DJ Lovett in the first place. So inevitably, I think you're going to want to end up either in an aggressive red-green deck or an aggressive white-green. White-red, and I've opted into a white-red deck here. Everything is sort of the same as it would be on DJ Wolf, with the exception of, again, you've got the new MC Lion assists, and you've got Dig, which just, I'm gonna, rather than read this whole block of text, which is a very nice way of saying draw a white and a red card, it basically means that you can draw 2 cards with this first grow, and the second one is basically saying you have anywhere from 1 to 3 creatures 3 Signies that can attack on the opponent's side of the field, and it's incredibly flexible and modular in terms of how you want to pay for it. MC Lion is probably one of the best assists that you could be playing in the game, period. And as such, just the power of this deck goes up by the fact that it has MC Lion Dig and MC Lion Respect in it. VJ Wolf. We're using the normal one, which is basically just enter charge 2 when it first comes in. It'll do the job that you need it to do, and then we follow it up. This time I'm actually using Mirage. I think Mirage is a little bit better in aggro decks, and the fact that you can use it to basically just pump everything and then you can negate an attack for a very, very expensive enter. You probably could use Stream as well and just get yourself more Life Cloth if that's the route you want to go. I actually kind of like the ambushing of Mirage. I like that it's cheap to grow. But I've said before in the past that just because it's cheap to grow does not necessarily mean that it's good. It just means that it's cheap. And the reason why I like this is it can actually defeat a lot of red's sort of like vanish effects and black's vanish effects, because it pumps up. It also allows you to wall break if there's like an Uchu player in front of you who's just set up a ton of walls. You can break them, and then hopefully they'll draw weaker Signy the next turn around, and then you can get your Vanish Train back on again. I think again this is whether or not you want to use Stream is optional. I think VJ Wolf is probably one of the worst to balance out the fact that MC Lion is ridiculously good. VJ Wolf is one of the worser green assist lines that you can have. Then we go into the main deck. Actually, it's Endless Punchline. I guess we should talk about Endless Punchline. This is the whole reason you still want to use a team. Endless Punchline, when you are doing it correctly, almost always guarantees that your L-Rig is going to attack for 3. And it's worth mentioning that there's sort of this weird tension between DJ Lovett's ability and Endless Punchline. I guess now that I'm saying it out loud, right? It gains the following ability: it can attack even when downed. The weird thing with that, now that I'm realizing it, is normally you want to go first in order to go and throw your Endless Punchline out there as soon as possible. But with DJ Lovett, you probably want to go second. One, to ensure that their L-Rig is downed, or is leveled 3 when you're using this. And then you can potentially go down 3 times instead of 2, and then also Endless Punchline and attacked even though it's downed. So I guess there's your Wombo combo right there. It hasn't really come up in testing that that's been super necessary, but there's your tech that you should know exists for this type of deck. We're running Xenocluster as just a secondary thing. I think you can also run end of turn as something if you want to protect some of your Signy and really get your aggression moving on. End of turn is the piece that allows you to, it has spell cut in and allows you to negate a spell. But I like Xenocluster here. I think it's just a good all-around card that you're going to be wanting to use in this meta. This deck doesn't have a ton of draw, and because of that, you want to sort of protect your draw, and you definitely want to protect your enter because this deck is enter hungry as hell. Getting into the main deck, this is a lot like what normal MC Lion is. It's just like we turned 11 on the aggression. So you still have your Hanels, right? Which will help you thin out your deck and find and leave level 3s in your deck so you get more of a higher chance to hit with Endless Punchline. It's still running projection maps. Again, has the ability to let you hit more often with Endless Punchline. Plus, it just lets you play Endless Punchline and go like, you're not guarding this turn, and really smack them very, very hard. It's also going to be running, running some amount of Arc Winds, which also do that type of effect, again, allowing you to put more filtering in your deck and to hit your Endless Punchline. But we've turned up, again, like I said, the aggression here. So we're also running Rommel, and we are running Deafening Inferno, and we are running Lancelot. All of the cards that were like, all right, we're opening up lanes early on. I do think it's better to be in a more aggressive version of the deck rather than, I don't know, a red-green version of the deck, which I think could exist as well. We'll talk about in a hot beat. But it helps to be aggressive. I think probably the weakest card is this. I put this in here specifically to pick up projection maps and put them back into play, so that way you can reuse the fact that you are putting pressure on them and trying to get guards out of their hand. But I think if you wanted to replace that with Tobiel, that would have been a fine move as well. Tobiel is got the ability to pump things when it attacks. When it enters, it also lets you filter your hand. so you can get, I don't know, more things like guards late in the game, or lane openers, and it also has a life burst that just vanishes target up signing, which is pretty fine too. Inevitably, this is the core of the deck. You could run more or less Phoenix Natural Planets. I figure since you're already Enter Burning, you might want to run more of that type of Enter Burning effect. I don't like the fact that it has a little bit of... it hurts a little bit in the fact that you have to down one of your L rigs, and your DJ Lovett wants to also down the L rig in order to do Enter Burn. So it's not I didn't put it as a 4 of, but I could see a world where it's fine. It excels, like this is the Enter Burn deck, and you can excel with that type of thing. Running Good Dig, of course, because Good Dig helps you find the things that you need, plus it lets you put more quote-unquote air in your deck, so you hit with Endless Punchline more often. We've got this in order to do some lane opening as well as Double Crush. The Double Crush doesn't pop up super relevantly, but you can see that this is somehow like kind of like a no limit deck smashed with an MC Lion deck and just like shuffled together, and it has very much that vibes. I actually like it a little bit better than Akino, to be honest with you, and the reason is because of Endless Punchline. It basically gives you an end game to work towards and an early game red aggression to start with. Inevitably, this deck ends up being a little enter hungry because you're running very much 50% red versus white. I did balance that though when I was building the deck, is that I purposefully went out of my way to ensure that I had slightly more red than white, so you should be able to grow your Lovit every time and do fine with it. Let's talk about some other options that you could also put in here. There's not really any green, but I do think that Osaka Getsun might have a role in the deck if you wanted to be a little bit more late game. The issue is there's not a ton of ways to do enter in this deck, and so you'll need to kind of supplant ways to do enter. It's not Bang, for example, which can reliably turn this on all the time. And I do think that Mew Suzuka is a good way to do it. I don't love this. I actually like it more in defensive decks than aggressive decks because its power is so low, and you can enter it. It basically becomes an enter starve wall. So I don't love it here, but you can do it if you really, really wanted to get more early game interaction with this. I would think that the piece Silent Assassin might be an option. Early game interaction. I should say late game interaction. If you need to get these last points of damage in, I think the piece Silent Assassin might be a good option, which allows you to give some of your stuff Assassin and go around the target instead of through the target. And that it's a little unreliable in the fact that you need to be depending on your opponents to be playing a very slow deck. Otherwise, it is a waste of a piece, unlike, I don't know, something like Xenocluster, which is just always okay at the very worst. And then the cases that it's good, it's amazing. Another thing that you can do to help yourself get to just the last bits of damage through, Atalanta will also do that type of thing. Realistically, Atalanta is just a reliable way to put 1, 2, maybe 3 copies in there. It doesn't require, it needs you to do 3 different Signy classes, and I think the deck, I haven't actually looked, but I think the deck plays quite a bit of different Signy classes. It plays a few more angels than you'd think. Arcwane, Kasugichi, and Hanel are all angels, but everything else is either brave or armed class. Yeah, so you have ways to get around that type of thing, and you will inevitably be able to pull it off. So I think that's the deck in a nutshell. Where does it excel at? It's a very, very aggressive deck with a late game punch. So if you are thinking that you're getting walled out recently by these late games and you need some kind of way to still keep aggression on the ground, but you want to get through with some extra reach, well, Endless Punchline is reach just written on it, right? Like it attacks in a weird way. Plus, if you have a projection map, it's like almost impossible to guard from. So if you still want to stay, like if being aggressive is still a route to success in your meta, but the opponents are starting to now tech in things to try to slow the games down, to stall the games out more, this becomes your friend, and you could do something more along this lines. I do not think it's quite as good as just MC Lion Center, for the fact that MC Lion just sort of gives you a more well-rounded mid-range strat, but I do think that it still will pull its weight if you decide to play it. And with that, remember, guys, you can always subscribe for more deck techs here, and you can subscribe for the podcast where Tiffany and I talk about all things Wixoss. And we'll see you on the next one. May you always flip a life burst.